Hey guys, tonight we're dipping our toes and the rest of our grime-covered bodies into something truly bizarre. The Roman baths. Not the spa retreats with cucumber water and calming whale noises. I'm talking about the real thing. Ancient Roman public bathing complexes where naked strangers shared sponges and hygiene was more of a performance than a reality. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you. I'm convinced 93% of you are horizontal, under a blanket, and wondering why you can't fall asleep to something less damp. Now, dim the lights, put on a fan for that soothing white noise, and make yourself comfortable. Maybe spritz some lavender on your pillow, or just embrace your inner Roman and let the funk marinate. Let's pause for a second and ask the big questions. What was it actually like to visit a Roman bath? Were they really clean or just steaming petri dishes with marble floors? Who got to go? Did you need a towel? Or were you just expected to drip dry while arguing about politics? How many people were naked? And how many shouldn't have been? Were these social spaces, saunas, or secret Tinder lounges in togas? And now, congratulations. You've just woken up in 142 CE. You live in Rome. And today's itinerary includes one thing: bathing. Not in private, not with soap, but in a giant, echoing building packed with gossip, body odor, and hot air in every sense of the phrase. Good luck. You wake up on your straw mattress, limbs sore, mouth dry, and skin mysteriously damp. Your neighbor's donkey has been braying since sunrise, and someone outside is already yelling about lentils. You smell like you need a bath. Good news, you're a Roman. Baths are not just available, they're a lifestyle. Bad news, so is smelling like everything you've ever done wrong. The scent wafting from your armpits could legally be considered a form of civil disturbance. You sit up, dust sticking to your shoulder like seasoning, and try to remember if you used olive oil as moisturizer or if that's just ambient grease from last night's communal stew. Either way, you're glistening and not in a flattering way. Your room, if you can call it that, is about the size of a moderately ambitious broom closet. Clay walls, one window, no glass, just a bit of linen flapping in the breeze like it's trying to escape. There's no insulation. The mattress is stuffed with straw, hay, and optimism. You share your space with a family of ants who now pay rent in crumbs. If you listen closely, you can hear the distant rustle of a mouse plotting against you, probably over your last piece of hard cheese. You roll out of bed, cracking joints like the percussion section of a budget amphitheater. You're 30, which in Roman years is basically 45, and your knees are starting to whisper betrayals. Your feet hit the floor-cool tile, kind of sticky, smells faintly of damp sandal, and you try not to step directly on whatever that is in the corner. Probably a dropped fig. Hopefully, you're not wearing much. A short tunic, wrinkled, slightly crusty, and boasting a suspicious brown smear that could either be sauce or history. You sniff it, regret. No one in Rome owns a closet. Clothes are simply rotated through levels of disgrace. Yours is currently in the sentimental attachment to stains phase. You adjust your belt and make your way toward the door, squinting into the daylight like an ancient cryptid discovering photosynthesis. Outside, the street is already alive. A fruit vendor yells about his plums. A fishmonger accuses someone's mother of criminal under-seasoning. A small child runs past covered in what you hope is mud. You stretch, inhale deeply, and instantly regret it. Rome doesn't smell like victory. It smells like garlic, hot dust, fresh bread, and a layer of street-level funk so thick it should be taxed. A passing cart nearly runs over your foot. The driver doesn't stop. He shouts something about cabbage and civic pride. You wave. He flips you off using a gesture that hasn't yet been officially invented. Welcome to the Eternal City. You make your way toward the baths, but first, breakfast. Sort of. You stop at a stall where an elderly woman sells yesterday's bread, this morning's olives, and gossip that's only mildly outdated. You buy a crusty roll that could double as a projectile weapon, then decide it's too early for olives, especially since the last one you bought had a worm inside. You'd prefer not to start your day with existential dread. As you chew, slowly and resentfully, you feel the heat already rising off the pavement. The toga-clad elite glide by, their sandals suspiciously clean. You, on the other hand, are doing the proletarian shuffle, sweaty, slightly hunched, and increasingly aware that your left armpit has entered a new stage of fermentation. Which brings us back to the baths. You may not be wealthy, but you're Roman. And that means you're entitled to cleanliness, or at least to the illusion of it. The public baths are open to everyone, except for slaves who aren't on break and people who've recently committed treason. You check your calendar. You're good. The baths are more than just a place to scrub. They're your office, your living room, your gossip column, your therapist's couch, and occasionally your battlefield, depending on how intense the political debates get. They are where you discuss taxes, bicker about chariot teams, and very carefully pretend you didn't just see your landlord's cousin airing out his nether regions in the steam room. But you're not there yet. First, you need to survive the rest of your morning. That includes dodging a group of drunk legionaries playing dice in the alley, politely declining a philosophical rant from a man who may be Cicero's second cousin, and making peace with the fact that you absolutely do not have time to do actual work today. The bath is calling. You quicken your pace, the scent of your own body now following you like a loyal but deeply unwashed pet. You are one oiling, one scrape, and one cold plunge away from becoming a functioning member of society, or at least from smelling less like a history exhibit in a damp cave. Because here in Rome, hygiene isn't just a routine, it's a performance. And your audience? Everyone within sniffing distance. Forget gym shorts, forget robes. Today you're wrapping yourself in the Roman equivalent of a glorified handkerchief. Most bathers go with the tunica, but you won't need it for long. At the baths, modesty takes a holiday, and so does your dignity. Your tunic is a light linen affair, more suggestion than garment, and held together by hope and a belt that's seen better decades. It doesn't quite fit. It never did. And that's okay, because the moment you step into the bathhouse, it'll be abandoned in a cubbyhole next to someone else's equally shameful excuse for an outfit. In modern terms, it's like walking into a public spa with a towel that shrinks in humid air and a 40% chance of pickpocketing. You grab your sandals, the thin, floppy kind, with zero arch support and maximum rock to heel transfer, and step outside. The sun's up, the street is bustling, and you're sweating through your outfit by the time you reach the end of your alley. Perfect. Nothing says, ready to bathe, like showing up already damp and emotionally compromised. As you walk, you pass men wearing togas, the formal wear of choice for senators, poets, and people with strong opinions about aqueducts. Togas are heavy, complicated wool origami. You, a humble Roman civilian on bath day, have wisely opted out of toga struggles. Dressing in a toga takes 2 people, 3 expletives, and a working seventives. Knowledge of fabric origami. If you've ever tried to wrap yourself in a fitted sheet while being judged by a goose, that's the vibe. Instead, your tunic is simple, breathable, and offers just enough coverage to avoid arrest. Bare legs? Absolutely. Chest? Probably. Underwear? Optional and historically disputed. If you're feeling modest, maybe a subligaculum, basically a Roman loincloth that's one stiff breeze away from making you a local legend. But let's be honest. The minute you reach the changing room, it's all coming off anyway. You're not going to the baths for fashion. You're going for function, although even that's debatable. There's no official dress code, but there are expectations. For example, don't show up looking like you've been rolled in a sack of barley and disappointment. At least brush the crumbs off. The baths are public spaces, places to be seen, judged, and casually gossiped about. If you're not careful, you'll become the subject of a poem. And not the flattering kind. You finally reach the thermae, the bathhouse, a massive structure of arches, columns, and moist civic pride. You step into the apoditerium, the changing room, where marble benches line the walls and the air smells like oil, sweat, and ambition. Naked men mill about like it's the most normal thing in the world. And here, it is. You find an empty niche in the wall to store your belongings. There's no lock, no key, just a wooden cubby and a vague sense of optimism. If you're lucky, a slave will watch over it while you bathe. If you're unlucky, you'll return to find your tunic traded for something with more holes than fabric. This is why some people hire personal slaves to guard their clothes. You have no slave. You have trust issues and a tunic with questionable resale value. Now, it's time to undress. You do it quickly, like peeling off regret. There's no curtain, no privacy booth, and definitely no towel to drape artfully around your waist. You're just out there, fully Roman, fully exposed, trying to remember that everyone else is just as underwhelmingly shaped as you are. And here's where things get interesting. Nudity isn't weird, but your attitude about it can be, if you try to cover up, you look suspicious. If you act too confident, you look suspicious. Basically, the only correct posture is relaxed indifference, mixed with a vague awareness of your surroundings. Eye contact is limited, body contact is accidental. And conversation? Oh, it continues, uninterrupted. Men argue about philosophy while toweling their backsides. A retired soldier discusses his liver problems while balancing on one foot. You're in the middle of a very naked think tank. Some wear sandals into the bathing areas. Some go barefoot. You do your best to avoid stepping on dropped olives, spilled oil, or worse, someone's dropped strigil. You once knew a guy who slipped on a soapstone and dislocated his dignity. And finally, with your tunic folded and wedged between a dusty urn and someone's half-eaten fig, you're ready. Oiled, awkward, and emotionally vulnerable. You step out of the apoditarium into the warm, echoing corridors of the bath complex, where marble meets moisture, and your sense of boundaries evaporates faster than steam in the caldarium. Because in Rome, less isn't just more. It's mandatory. You stroll through the bustling streets of Rome, dodging carts, beggars, poets, and extremely committed street musicians. The aroma is a haunting blend of olives, open sewer, and ambition. You pass the forum and try not to trip over a sleeping senator. Rome never sleeps, and it definitely never sanitizes. The air is thick, less with pollution, more with the desperate enthusiasm of 10,000 citizens all trying to get somewhere important before lunch. You're halfway to the bathhouse, but already sweating like you've done a full cardio workout. Your sandals flap against the cobblestones, offering no real protection from the sharp pebbles, ancient chewing gum equivalent, or the occasional mysterious puddle that defies explanation and basic physics. You sidestep a man loudly reciting Virgil with all the passion of someone who definitely peaked in rhetorical school and refuses to admit it. A donkey cart barrels past you, one wheel squeaking like it's screaming for retirement. The driver yells something poetic and deeply offensive. You salute him with equal parts respect and fear. Then you hear it, the unmistakable sound of a lyre being played like it owes someone money. Around the corner, a street musician in a tunic, 3 sizes too big, is performing what might be a love ballad or a cry for help. Children throw him grapes. One of them is still attached to a vine. He bows anyway. Every inch of Rome street is alive. Not in the metaphorical sense, in the actual, living organism sense. The roads are littered with vendors yelling about oysters, used scrolls, fried, mice on a stick, and miracle lotions made from only the best wolf glands. You hold your breath as you pass the fish stall. Bad idea. Your lungs regret it instantly. The fish is technically still edible, in that it hasn't run away yet. There's no sidewalk, no bike lane, no sense of personal space. It's a full contact sport just to walk to the bathhouse. You are elbowed by a man selling vinegar. You are accidentally blessed by a passing priest. You nearly trip over a tortoise. Someone is definitely racing illegally. No one looks surprised. Rome is chaos, and chaos is punctual. You pass the forum, where important men in togas are pretending to listen to each other while mentally calculating bribes. One of them snores gently into a scroll. Another is in the middle of a passionate debate with a statue. You don't interrupt. You're not ready for that kind of existential confrontation. As you round the corner, a group of bored teenagers catcall a woman carrying water. She ignores them expertly. You consider applauding her restraint. One of them throws a fig. It bounces off the wall and lands squarely in your path. You step over it like the Roman dignitary you pretend to be. Your feet ache. Your tunic is sticking in places it absolutely shouldn't, and you begin to smell the distinct scent of the public latrines wafting through the alley. It is, in a word, powerful. In another word, offensive. You hold your breath again, regret it again. You pass by a fountain. It's supposed to be decorative. It's currently housing 3 ducks, 1 drunk senator, and a man washing his feet while arguing with what appears to be his own reflection. You toss in a coin for good luck, and immediately worry you've just paid a duck. Now you're walking uphill, because Rome is entirely uphill, even when it's not. The stones beneath your feet are worn smooth by centuries of uncomfortable sandals and endless civic complaints. You can feel each one through the soles of your shoes, especially the jagged ones. You stub your toe on something that may have once been a commemorative plaque and bite your tongue to avoid swearing at Julius Caesar himself. A child runs past carrying a live chicken. You have no questions. You've learned not to. Finally, through the crowds and curses, through the heat and historical foot pain, you see it, the towering facade of the bathhouse. Stone arches, grand columns, and steam rising like divine approval. You've made it. You're only slightly bruised and only moderately traumatized. You pause for a moment outside the entrance, breathing in the scent of hot stone, olive oil, and a vague whiff of ambition. Behind you, a man sneezes violently into a passing scroll. In front of you, marble and moist hope await. You straighten your shoulders. You have arrived. Because in Rome, even something as simple as walking to a bath is a full-body adventure through noise, nonsense, and at least 3 potential lawsuits. And you haven't even taken off your sandals yet. The bath complex looms before you, a massive stone monument to body odor and civic pride. Columns tower above sweaty crowds. Inside, steam, shouting, slapping sounds. Probably some drama involving a borrowed oil flask. You step in. You immediately regret everything. The air hits you like a wall of hot soup and ambition. It's humid, very humid. Like walking into a heated greenhouse built entirely out of marble, ego, and questionable life choices. Your lungs instantly register their disapproval. You breathe anyway, mostly because passing out in the entryway is considered poor form. You shuffle forward, sandaled feet slapping against slick marble. The floor is wet, always wet. Not refreshing morning dew wet, more like shared with hundreds of semi-rinsed humans wet. You try not to imagine what percentage of this moisture is water. You fail. The ceilings stretch high above you, a marvel of Roman engineering and probably mold, domed, echoing, beautifully constructed and dripping in places that suggest no one is in charge of ceiling maintenance anymore. Light filters through high windows, illuminating floating clouds of steam and the occasional airborne towel. Somewhere, a man shouts, "Thief!" followed by the sound of someone falling into a basin. No one looks concerned. You've entered the vestibule of the Thermae, the public bathhouse, and immediately you're reminded of 2 things. 1. Rome does public bathing like it does everything else, loudly, elaborately, and with far too much nudity. And 2. You are absolutely underdressed for whatever drama is unfolding in the corner between 2 toga-clad retirees and a suspiciously smug teenager. To your left, a group of men are having a heated discussion over a cracked amphora of wine. Their bodies glisten with oil, and their opinions are as loud as their armpits. You pick up snippets about grain prices, the latest gladiator scandal, and someone's son, who is apparently too soft for politics and too ugly for marriage. Brutal. Accurate. To your right, a group of teenage boys are daring each other to belly flop into the frigidarium, the cold plunge pool. One of them is already purple. Another appears to be attempting a philosophical monologue while shivering violently. It's either a performance or the onset of hypothermia. Maybe both. The Thermae is less like a spa and more like a sweaty coliseum of hygiene and unfiltered conversation. No one whispers. Voices bounce off the marble like goats off a cliff. People are everywhere, lounging, arguing, massaging, eating, exercising and making life choices that would get them banned from modern gyms. You spot a man oiling his chest while reciting poetry to a very uninterested audience of snoring pensioners. You cling to your towel like it's your last shred of dignity, which, let's be honest, it is. You make your way past the apoditerium, the changing area, where clothing is stuffed into wooden cubbies and guarded by slaves or blind faith. Some Romans bring personal attendants to watch over their belongings. You, however, bring only paranoia and a deep mistrust of unattended cloaks. A man with a strigil, the curved metal tool used to scrape oil and dirt from skin, walks past you, flicking something from the blade that you really hope is just olive oil. A child slips in front of you. A woman scolds him with the fury of a matron whose sandals have been personally violated. The acoustics make it sound like she's calling upon Jupiter himself to smite the child. You move on. You pass the palestra, the exercise yard, where shirtless men are lifting stones, tossing medicine balls, and pretending not to compete with each other. One man flexes aggressively as he jogs past, slick with oil and ego. His sandals squeak. You respect the commitment to cardio, if not the choice of loincloth. Then, as you round a corner, you're nearly trampled by a small, fast-moving man carrying 4 amphorae of warm water and screaming, "Hot, hot, hot," like a caffeinated tea kettle. You press yourself against the wall to let him pass, only to realize the wall is also damp. Of course it is. Finally, you arrive in the heart of the thermae, the central atrium where pools gurgle, steam rises, and egos float freely. It's beautiful in a way that only Roman bathhouses can be equal parts. Architectural brilliance and fungal hazard. You take a deep breath. It tastes like eucalyptus, ambition, and the faintest trace of boiled regret. Around you, everyone is doing their best impression of relaxed nobility, while secretly sizing each other up based on body hair density and social status. You are now part of this, a citizen of the bath, one of the chosen moist. Welcome to the thermae, where everything is wet, everyone is loud, and modesty is a myth. And the bath hasn't even started yet. This is the changing room. It's large, echoey, and smells like to regret. You strip down and leave your clothes in a cubby, guarded by a slave whose name is probably Oops. If you're lucky, your tunic will still be here when you return. If not, you'll be inventing fashion later. The apoditerium is not a place for modesty. It's a place for acceptance. Specifically, acceptance that every inch of your body will be judged by a group of sweaty strangers pretending not to look. The room is enormous. Walls of stone, benches of marble, and a floor that feels like it's been polished exclusively by damp feet and broken dreams. Every sound echoes. Every conversation becomes a public service announcement. And every step you take squeaks just enough to make you question your life choices. You glance around. The walls are lined with rows of open cubbies, wooden storage holes for your belongings, also known as things that will definitely go missing if you blink for too long. Some bathers have brought personal slaves to guard their clothes. These men stand stoically beside piles of tunics, arms folded, eyes sharp, ready to tackle any thief or towel snatcher. You, however, have brought no one. Just your humility, a suspiciously worn sandal, and a strong hope that your belongings are too boring to steal. As you peel off your tunic, you notice it makes a sound like parchment being crumpled under pressure. You fold it carefully, pretending you're not aware it smells like fermented goat. You wedge it into an empty cubbyhole numbered, but not locked, and give the nearest slave a look that says, "Please, just this once?" He shrugs. You whisper a prayer to Fortuna, the goddess of luck, and walk away, emotionally naked before your body even is. The room is full of bodies, all shapes, all sizes, all degrees of confidence and divided by or denial. No one looks great in the harsh overhead torchlight, but everyone pretends they do. Some older men have brought enough oil to baste a pig. Others are already halfway through the strigil, process scraping themselves clean with curved metal tools like human carrots being peeled for salad. A middle-aged merchant drops his tunic and reveals more body hair than you previously thought possible outside of the animal kingdom. He nods at you. You nod back, as if this moment isn't burning itself permanently into your memory. In one corner, a pair of senators argue over property lines while slipping off their sandals. One of them lifts a foot to reveal toes that belong in a medical scroll. The other gestures wildly with a strigil, nearly taking out a slave walking past with a jug of oil. You duck instinctively, then wonder how often that's happened before. Children dart between legs, yelling, slipping, laughing. One is wearing his father's belt as a crown. Another is pretending the oil flask is a weapon. You sidestep as a small boy launches into a puddle with the enthusiasm of someone who's never paid a laundry bill. His splash hits your calf. You flinch. It's warm. You try not to think about it. The noise is relentless conversation layered over conversation. Arguments, jokes, the slap of skin on marble, the creak of tired sandals. A man shouts for more towels. Another shouts that someone stole his. The accused man shouts back that it's his towel and has been for 3 years. The towel in question looks like it's lost the will to live, and possibly its original color. A slave quietly offers both men new towels while making direct eye contact with the ceiling. You step onto a bench and begin applying oil. It's cold. Of course it's cold. You gasp audibly, then pretend you didn't. You rub it into your arms, chest, legs, basically anywhere that's likely to collect both sweat and judgment. The oil is olive-based, slightly scented, and has the texture of moral ambiguity. You're not sure if you feel cleaner or just greasier, but the man next to you slaps his oiled chest proudly and announces, "Now I'm ready for anything." You nod. You are not ready for anything. As you finish, you grab your own strigil and attempt the first scrape. It makes a noise like wet leather being dragged across a statue. You keep going, trying not to notice how much of your skin appears to be flaking off. Is that dirt? Oil? Existential dread? You decide not to ask. When you're finally finished, greased, scraped, and lightly traumatized, you take one last glance at your cubby. It still contains your tunic. Miraculous. You nod at Oops, who now appears to be sleeping with his eyes open. You take a deep breath and walk toward the next room. You are now clean-ish, undressed, and emotionally vulnerable. Welcome to the Roman bath. You've left your clothes and your boundaries at the door. Before entering the baths proper, you're expected to oil yourself up and get scraped down with a curved metal tool called a strigil. It's like exfoliating. If exfoliating involved being manhandled by a guy named Marcus with questionable hygiene and strong opinions on Caesar's latest tax policy. You sit awkwardly on the edge of a stone bench, a small jar of olive oil in one hand and the strigil in the other, mentally preparing for a process that somehow feels both deeply intimate and vaguely medical. The strigil itself is a metal blade, not sharp, not quite dull, but with the precise curvature of something designed by someone who wanted to combine skincare with public humiliation. You begin the oiling, slowly, reluctantly. The oil is cool, thick, and smells faintly of herbs, or maybe regret. You pour some into your palm, rub it between your hands, and start smearing it over your arms, your chest, your legs everywhere that's soon to be scraped like a leftover casserole from last night's banquet. This isn't the luxurious oil massage you imagined. No gentle rubbing, no flute music, no calming words whispered by someone named Cassia. Just you, oil, and the faint realization that you are now marinating yourself like a particularly underwhelming chicken. A man sits down next to you. He's already half-oiled and fully confident. "Going in for a scrape?" he asks, as if this is a normal sentence for two mostly naked strangers to exchange. You nod. He smiles. "Get Marcus. He's thorough." You look up just in time to see Marcus approaching. He is enormous. His chest hair forms its own shadow. His hands are the size of amphorae. His strigil gleams like he's recently sharpened it on someone's spine. He doesn't ask your name. He doesn't need to. To Marcus, all bodies are just canvases for exfoliation and unsolicited conversation. "Stand up," he says. You obey. He begins with your back, pouring a generous amount of oil down your spine, before dragging the strigil in long, slow strokes. It makes a noise somewhere between a squelch and a squish. You shudder. He grunts approvingly. "Not bad," he says. "Bit crusty." You try to respond, but he's already scraping your shoulders like he's revealing a mosaic beneath your skin. Bits of dirt, oil, and your last shred of pride collect on the strigil with each pass. Marcus examines the build-up like an artist checking his brush. "City grime," he declares. "You from the Subura?" You nod. He scrapes harder. The conversation continues. He talks. You flinch. He shares his thoughts on taxation, gladiator salaries, and the inferior quality of this year's olive harvest. You attempt polite noises between winces. Marcus has very strong opinions, and his strigil punctuates every sentence. By the time he moves to your arms, you're slippery, pink, and questioning whether you're still technically human or just a sentient oil slick. Marcus doesn't stop. "You've got knots," he announces, digging the strigil into your shoulder. You gasp. "Relax," he says. "That's just your tension leaving. It's also possibly your soul." Across the room, another man is scraping himself, with the self-loathing intensity of someone trying to erase last night's bad decisions. An older gentleman is having a heated debate with his strigil assistant about the merits of cold baths. A teenager yelps as his friend flicks oil at him and is immediately reprimanded by an old woman who seems to appear solely to scold and disappear again like a ghost of Roman manners. Marcus finishes with your legs. He wipes the strigil on a cloth that looks like it's been shared by several generations and slaps you lightly on the back. "You're done," he says. "You're soft now." You nod, unsure if it's a compliment or a threat. You sit back down, your body glistening in the torchlight, pores freshly scrubbed, skin tingling, and dignity somewhere in the vicinity of your discarded tunic. The oil and grime have been removed mostly. Emotionally, you'll need time. The strigil ritual isn't optional. It's a public rite of passage, a cleansing of the body and, depending on how talkative your Marcus is, a reshuffling of your political views. You feel lighter, cleaner, slightly violated, but in a socially acceptable way. Now, properly scraped, slightly traumatized, and smelling faintly of rosemary and sweat, you're ready to enter the actual baths. Congratulations, you've survived Phase 1. Only 5 more rooms, and 3 psychological reckonings to go. You ease into the tepidarium, the warm room. Not hot, not cold, just moist. It's basically a human stew. You sit on a marble bench, surrounded by middle-aged senators arguing about grain prices. Someone sneezes. You pray it's not contagious. It probably is. The tepidarium is the Roman bathhouse's version of foreplay, gentle, warming, and filled with subtle dread. It's where your body adjusts to the idea of becoming progressively more damp over the next hour. The walls are covered in tile mosaics depicting gods, dolphins, and the occasional questionable mythological moment. Steam lingers in the air like a party guest who doesn't know when to leave. Everything here glistens. The floors are wet, the benches are wet, you are wet. Even the air has a texture, like someone wrung out a toga into the atmosphere and decided to call it ambiance. You sit on a marble slab that's been pre-warmed by a dozen other Romans and hope none of them had athlete's foot or ambitions of starting a plague. The warmth seeps into your pores. It feels nice, comforting, like being hugged by a large, slightly damp aunt. For the first time today, your muscles begin to relax. Your shoulders lower by at least 2 inches. Your back no longer feels like a badly constructed aqueduct. You allow yourself to breathe in, carefully. There's a whiff of olive oil, sandalwood, and the ghost of a bad garlic decision. To your left, a pair of senators are mid-debate. One insists the grain shortage is due to corruption in the provinces. The other blames the gods. Neither seems aware they're both half-naked and sweating like boiled turnips. A third man chimes in just to disagree with both of them. He doesn't even know what the argument is about. It's just tradition. You nod along, pretending to be invested. In truth, You're more concerned with the way the man across from you keeps making eye contact while toweling his armpits. He doesn't blink. You try to shift your gaze without looking like you're admitting guilt. You fail. Elsewhere in the room, a group of younger men discuss chariot races with the seriousness of a military briefing. They disagree about wheel maintenance and horse names. One of them is massaging his calves with a large amount of oil. Another is braiding his friend's chest hair for what appears to be luck. You consider joining in? Then remember you have dignity. Or at least, you used to. There's no pool in the tepidarium, just benches, ambient steam, and the occasional basin of warm water someone left behind like a forgotten footbath. Occasionally, an attendant strolls through with a towel and a dead-eyed expression that says he's seen too much. You briefly wonder what it's like to be a Roman bath slave. You quickly decide not to think about it too hard. You lean back against the stone, slick with condensation, and probably stories you don't want to know. Your skin prickles with the heat, your toes uncurl. You allow yourself to close your eyes for half a moment. Then someone sits directly next to you. There's plenty of space, at least 5 empty spots. But this man, let's call him Gaius, chooses the spot right beside you. His thigh touches yours. His shoulder brushes your elbow. He says nothing, just sighs deeply, contentedly, like a man who has claimed his emotional support stranger. You freeze. Do you move? Do you acknowledge him? Do you scoot? No, you remain still. This is your bench now. You have committed. You will not be displaced by Theus Maximus. Moments pass. Minutes, maybe years. Time in. The tepidarium bends like a badly fired clay cup. The warmth starts to lull you into a daze. Your brain melts gently, like goat cheese in the sundae. You begin to feel that strange Roman serenity, the calm that comes from not wearing pants and not caring who sees. And just when you think you might actually enjoy this, someone drops a soapstone. It clatters across the floor with all the grace of a dying gladiator. Everyone looks. No one helps. The owner, red-faced, slips slightly as he bends to retrieve it. You pretend you didn't see. Eye contact is the enemy. The room continues its humid ballet of conversation, lounging, and mutual stewing. A man coughs in the corner. Another adjusts his strigil like a nervous tick. Somewhere, a child laughs, and you realize, yes, children are allowed in here. Why wouldn't they be? What better way to teach hygiene and social discomfort at the same time? Eventually, an attendant gestures toward the next room, the coldarium, the hot room, the real test, the actual sweat box, the Roman microwave. You are not ready, but you stand anyway. You rise from your bench, slick and slightly wiser. Gaius nods at you. You nod back. Your thighs are free at last. Welcome to the tepidarium, where the water is warm, the stairs are intense, and everyone pretends this is perfectly normal. Because in Rome, it absolutely is. Now you step into the caldarium, the hot room. Steam chokes the air. The floors scald your feet. Naked men argue about poetry while aggressively sweating. You pretend to be impressed. One man is just breathing heavily in the corner. You try not to make eye contact. The caldarium is not a room you enter so much as one that envelops you. It swallows you whole, your senses, your breath, your last remaining sense of modesty. It's not just hot, it's volcanic. It's like being kissed by a furnace that resents you. Your lungs file a formal complaint. Your skin begins to sizzle like a sausage that wasn't invited to this dinner party. You shuffle forward cautiously, the soles of your feet slapping the wet stone floor like confused fish. The ground is heated from beneath by a clever network of Roman engineering called a hypercaust, which basically translates to, let's set the floor on fire and see who survives. Each step feels like a mild punishment for past sins. You keep moving because standing still is somehow worse. The air is thick, thicker than it has any right to be. Steam coils around your body like judgmental mist, dampening everything it touches. Visibility is low. Moisture beads on every surface. Every surface includes you. It's like sweating inside someone else's sweat. You lower yourself onto a marble bench, cautiously because sitting on ancient stone that's been sunbathing internally all morning is a form of thrill-seeking. Your thighs make contact. You yelp softly. A nearby man grunts in agreement. You are now part of the fellowship of scorched posteriors. Across from you, two men are locked in a heated debate, ironically, about whether Homer's Iliad should be recited aloud or read in silence. One of them slaps his chest for emphasis, sending a ripple of sweat across the room like a damp prophecy. The other raises a dripping eyebrow and counters with something about meter. Neither one acknowledges their personal melting. Next to you, a wiry older man exhales deeply through his nose, staring into the middle distance like he's meditating on the meaning of soap. His chest rises and falls with the slow precision of someone who has done this every day since Tiberius was in sandals. He does not move. He does not blink. He may in fact be dead. You decide not to check. A servant walks through carrying a large ladle and a jug of water. He pours it onto a central basin, releasing an aggressive hiss of steam that scalds your earlobes and sense of peace. Several bathers moan appreciatively. One applauds. You consider leaving. Then you remember. There's no non-awkward way to exit a room full of sweating men mid-lecture about epic poetry. You shift your posture. Instantly regret it. The marble reminds you who's boss. You attempt a yoga-like stretch, trying to appear both casual and limber, and end up looking like a startled squid. A teenager in the corner giggles. You accept your fate. Every breath in the caldarium feels like sipping tea made from boiled arguments and eucalyptus. The scent is herbal, slightly medicinal, and just sharp enough to clear your sinuses and any remaining delusions of dignity. Somewhere nearby, a man is discussing municipal water supply as if it's foreplay. You listen because the alternative is making eye contact with the man who is now aggressively massaging his own calves like they owe him money. Time slows in here. Maybe it stops, you can't tell. Your fingers are pruny, your brain is damp. You've become part of the steam. Conversations rise and fall like waves one moment, politics. The next, digestive health. A man boasts about his bathhouse stamina. Another quietly claims to have seen Jupiter in a puddle. No one questions it. You attempt a deep breath. Mist fills your nostrils. You sneeze. No one reacts. Probably because sneezing in here is the equivalent of passing gas in the forum, awkward but culturally forgiven if done with confidence. Eventually, a bell sounds a low, reverberating chime. It's unclear if it means anything. Maybe it's time to leave. Maybe it's just tradition. Either way, a few bathers rise with the solemnity of philosophers and shuffle toward the next room. You follow. Slowly. Carefully. You're not sure if your knees still work, or if they've fully surrendered to the moist Roman gods. You stand, dripping like a forgotten wax statue, and make your way through the cloud. Congratulations. You survived the caldarium. You are 80% water, 20% roasted ambition, and 100% less hydrated than when you walked in, onward to the next room. Because this is Rome. And this is only the middle act of your slightly soggy self-care saga. You did it. You survived the hot room. Now comes the frigidarium, the cold plunge. It's supposed to close your pores and shock your system. Instead, it closes your soul. You jump in, lose the will to live, and emerge gasping like a carp. Everyone pretends this is refreshing. Liars. The frigidarium is the final trial in your Roman hygiene pilgrimage. A large, rectangular pool of water that looks innocent enough, calm, clear, shimmering slightly under a shaft of light from a high window. It beckons like a serene oasis. A mirage. A trap. You approach, slippery and suspicious, already shivering in anticipation. The air here is cooler, calmer, deceptively peaceful. You've just left the caldarium, where your eyebrows nearly steamed off, and now your body is about to experience betrayal in liquid form. You toe the edge of the pool. The marble is slick, the water unmoving. It stares back at you like an ancient ghost who knows what you did last Saturnalia. A muscular man dives in beside you with the casual energy of someone who has nothing left to lose. He resurfaces, shakes the water from his hair, and yells, "Invigorating! with the enthusiasm of a man who may be in shock. You, however, are hesitating. Rightfully so. This isn't a dip your toes and ease in slowly situation. That's not the Roman way. Romans don't tiptoe into discomfort. They cannonball into it with full commitment and a complete disregard for consequences. You're supposed to plunge in one go, like you're rebirthing yourself through hypothermia. You inhale, you exhale, you leap, and instantly regret everything you've ever done. The cold hits like divine punishment, like being slapped in the chest by Neptune himself. Every muscle in your body contracts with the speed of a collapsing empire. Your lungs refuse to cooperate. Your thoughts scatter. Your spleen may have filed for relocation. You emerge from the water with a dramatic gasp, half air, half existential crisis. Your mouth is open. Your eyes are wide. You're certain you've just seen Jupiter riding a goose through the underworld. Someone claps. You wish them ill. Around you, other bathers pretend this is normal. They bob casually in the water, chatting about real estate, imported olives, and whether Cicero's nephew is truly allergic to figs or just dramatic. One man swims gentle laps like this isn't water chilled by the tears of forgotten emperors. Another is floating on his back, eyes closed, arms outstretched, as if auditioning to be the patron saint of smugness. You, meanwhile, are doing your best impression of a startled squirrel. Your limbs refuse to coordinate. Your teeth begin performing a Morse code version of your last will and testament. You try to settle into the chill, but the chill settles into you. Your bones begin drafting a complaint to the Senate. Still, there is a moment, brief, fragile, where something inside you shifts. Maybe it's your spine popping back into place. Maybe it's your brain rebooting. Either way, the cold becomes manageable. Not pleasant, not kind, but endurable. You float for a second, shivering gently, and feel oddly clear. Awake, sharpened by suffering. Someone nearby comments on the beauty of contrast. Hot to cold, tension to release, government corruption to public indifference. You nod sagely. Or maybe you're just nodding to keep your circulation going. The pool itself is a feat of engineering. Lined with polished stone, cooled by clever water channels, and constantly refreshed. You admire it while trying not to think about the fact that Rome hasn't invented chlorine yet. You try not to look at the suspicious floater near the edge. You succeed. Barely. A man beside you begins a rant about how the frigidarium improves virility. He slaps his chest, possibly for emphasis, possibly just to feel alive. You float away slowly, like a soggy piece of bread in denial. Eventually, your body accepts defeat. You are now, temporarily, a cold-blooded animal. Your skin has gone numb, your mind has gone blank, and you suspect your ears are slowly freezing shut. It's time to leave. You clamber out of the water, legs wobbling, dignity trailing behind like a wet tunic. You stand on the marble ledge, dripping and victorious. You survive the cold plunge. Barely. You don't feel refreshed. You feel betrayed. But you also feel awake. Alert. Acutely aware of your nipples. You glance back at the pool. It gurgles innocently. Someone else screams mid-dive. A Roman tradition continues. You towel off, wondering how ancient people voluntarily did this for fun and health, when they also believed sneezing too hard could summon a demon. You wrap yourself in a damp towel and limp toward the next chamber. Whatever it is, you hope it involves warmth, cushions, and maybe wine. Because in the frigidarium, your pores may have closed, but your eyes were opened to the cold, to the chaos, and to the timeless Roman lie. You'll get used to it. Need a bathroom break? Welcome to the communal latrine. A long stone bench with holes, a shared sponge on a stick, and zero shame. No stalls, no privacy. Just synchronized squatting and existential dread. You've never missed toilet paper so much. The Roman latrine is a marvel of engineering and a catastrophe of personal boundaries. You step into a wide chamber where stone benches stretch along the walls like some kind of terrible amphitheater for human plumbing. The air is damp, the lighting is dim. The aroma? Somewhere between old cabbage, overconfident anchovy, and a decision you'll regret for the rest of your life. The setup is brutally simple. A series of holes cut into a long stone seat, evenly spaced, like the worst game of musical chairs ever designed. There's a shallow water channel running below each hole, and another flowing in front of the bench, where the communal, cleaning sponge resides. One sponge, on a stick, for everyone, forever. You pause, you reflect, you consider leaving your body behind and becoming a ghost who doesn't have to go. But nature calls, loudly, in Latin, so you pick a spot, not too close to the group of talkative wine merchants on the left, not too far from the door you might need a quick exit. You sit. The stone is cold, unforgiving, slightly damp in a way that says centuries of shared discomfort. You stare straight ahead. Because eye contact is a crime in here. The man next to you is humming. Why is he humming? Is he comfortable? Is this his happy place? You don't ask. You don't want to know. The man on your other side leans over casually and begins a full conversation about olive oil prices. You answer because this is Rome, and if you don't respond, it's considered rude. Even here, even now, even while actively trying to disappear into the stone. A child runs past with a fig in one hand and the shared sponge in the other. You pray those two items never meet. A slave follows behind, shouting something about hygiene, which is both ironic and deeply overdue. You glance at the sponge. It's sitting in a bucket of water like it knows too much. It's seen things. It is the veteran of every bad decision made in this room. Supposedly, it's rinsed in salt water or vinegar between uses. Supposedly, you try not to do the math. You fail. You shiver. Across from you, two elderly women are arguing over whose grandson is more disappointing. One gestures wildly with her cane, almost knocking over the bucket. You flinch, which is dangerous mid-squat. They don't notice. They've seen it all. A breeze drifts through the open window. It does nothing. Absolutely nothing. The smell clings to the walls like a second coat of plaster. You begin breathing through your mouth, but it somehow makes it worse. You wonder if anyone has ever died in here just out of despair. Probably. Rome builds monuments to all sorts of tragedies. Why not this one? You try to finish quickly, but time slows in the latrine. Minutes feel like hours. Every sound is amplified: the drip of water, the scrape of sandals, the echo of regret. Somewhere behind you, someone is singing. Opera. In Latin. Loudly. When you're done, you're faced with the final trial. The sponge. You approach it like Indiana Jones, eyeing the wrong holy grail. Slowly, cautiously, hoping divine intervention will strike in the form of a surprise invention of disposable wipes. It does not. You lift it. It drips. You make peace with your gods. One quick swipe, one fast rinse. You don't look down. You don't think. You just do. And when it's over, you feel changed. Not cleaner, but spiritually realigned, humbled, reborn through shared suffering. You rinse the sponge for the next poor soul, set it down gently like a cursed artifact, and rise with the solemnity of a man who has seen into the abyss and come back mildly damp. A slave offers you a small cloth to dry your hands. You take it gratefully. You do not ask what else it's been used for. As you leave, you pass a group of teenagers daring each other to lick the sponge. One of them almost does. You say nothing. They must learn. Outside the latrine, the sun feels brighter. The air, fresher. You inhale deeply. You appreciate modern plumbing like never before. Congratulations. You survived the Roman communal latrine. You've squatted with senators. You've sponged like a citizen. You've shared more with strangers than most modern therapists would recommend. And now cleanish, traumatized, and forever changed, you return to the bathhouse proper. Because in Rome, even going to the bathroom is a social event and an endurance sport. The baths are the Roman version of a social media feed. Business is conducted. Affairs are discussed. A retired centurion tells you about his back pain. A lawyer tries to sell you property. Everyone's naked and very chatty. You miss silence. Silence is a myth. Welcome to the networking portion of your Roman bathing experience. You're not here to relax, at least not entirely. You're here to mingle. And in ancient Rome, mingling means having deep conversations with half-sweaty strangers while trying not to slip on the floor. It's like LinkedIn, if everyone was greased, loud, and very committed to making eye contact during uncomfortable topics. You're still dripping from the cold plunge, hoping to dry off slowly with a bit of dignity, when a man named Lucius sits beside you and immediately launches into his latest property scheme. He has a small vineyard for sale. It's beautiful, he says. Great for wine, also possibly haunted, but in a charming way. He winks. You nod politely and mentally delete your interest. To your left, two men are arguing about taxes, loudly and with intense hand gestures that send droplets flying like a sneeze in slow motion. One believes Rome should invest more in roads. The other thinks roads are a conspiracy invented by donkeys. You try to inch away, but the floor is slick and your dignity is fragile. Over in the corner, a young poet is loudly reciting verses about unrequited love and improperly stored olives. No one asked him to. No one wants him to stop. He's tragically shirtless and emotionally invested. His audience consists of two half-asleep retirees and a slave polishing sandals with the resigned expression of someone who's heard this poem 3 times today. A retired centurion corners you for a full saga about his military days. He served under Old Iron Gaius, a general known for his temper and his unfortunate habit of throwing helmets at people during strategy meetings. The centurion tells you how his back's never been the same since the battle of that one swamp. He slaps your shoulder for emphasis. You nod empathetically while trying to keep your towel from shifting. Nearby, 3 women gossip loudly about a senator's latest affair. Apparently, he's been seen sneaking out of the baths with a fishmonger's daughter. The scandal, the intrigue, the poor fishmonger, whose only crime was having a daughter, and not enough denarii to bribe the gossip mills. You pretend not to listen, but your ears are fully tuned in. It's Roman reality television, live and moist. Someone claps their hands and begins discussing horoscopes. You did not realize horoscopes were a thing in ancient Rome. They are. Apparently, being born under Saturn means you're destined for hemorrhoids and political scandal. You quietly check your birth star in your mind and wonder if you're safe. Everywhere you turn, deals are being made. A man buys a donkey. Another trades amphorae of olive oil for a private tutor. A magistrate swears he can get your cousin's trial moved up. No bribes necessary, just a gift of goodwill and 3 jars of fish sauce. The lines between friendship, business, and blackmail blur easily in the steamy fog of bathhouse diplomacy. And the nudity? No one notices anymore. Not because it's normal, but because it's required. The only clothing in this part of the world is confidence. That, and the occasional fashion statement in the form of a gold necklace or a suspiciously fancy sandal. A man beside you has managed to keep a laurel wreath on his head throughout the entire bath. No one asks why. He clearly needs it. You try to sneak away to a quieter corner, only to be intercepted by an older philosopher who begins monologuing about the nature of truth while applying oil to his elbows. His voice is low, raspy, and absolutely inescapable. He speaks in riddles, quotes himself, and may or may not be a senator. You nod thoughtfully while plotting your escape. Eventually, you find a moment of peace, if you can call sitting next to 2 arguing men who've both claimed the same lost sandal, peace. One of them insists it's his. The other claims divine intervention led it to him. A third man volunteers to lick it to determine its true owner. You stand. Quickly, you've now experienced the Roman bath in its fullest form. Not just a place for washing, but for wheeling, dealing, gossiping, philosophizing, and being mildly interrogated by the kind of person who always brings figs and never brings boundaries. And you've survived. Greasy, exhausted, over-socialized, and still unsure whether you agreed to buy a vineyard or adopt someone's nephew. Congratulations. You are now a fully integrated member of Roman society, and you will never take quiet bathrooms for granted again. Some bathhouses include exercise courts where men toss balls wrestle, and occasionally sprain something. You attempt a quick game of Trigon, immediately pull a muscle, and slink back to the tepidarium. So much for impressing that philosopher's niece. The Palestra, the Roman gymnasium, is a wide, open courtyard surrounded by colonnades and echoing with the sounds of competition, grunting, and mild injury. Marble statues watch from every corner, frozen forever in idealized, oiled musculature, silently judging your lack of coordination. You arrive wearing confidence and a borrowed belt. You will leave with neither. Men of all ages are already mid-activity. A trio of sinewy athletes is locked in a sweaty wrestling match that looks less like sport and more like a very confused group hug. On the other side of the court, a few younger men toss around a leather ball with the grace and coordination of trained acrobats. The game is Trigon, a Roman favorite. 3 players stand in a triangle, passing the ball back and forth while trying not to dislocate something important. It looks easy. It is not. You approach the group casually, the way one might approach a dog you're not sure likes you. A man named Gaius, shirtless, sun-tanned, and smug beckons you in with a nod. "You play?" he asks. "Absolutely," you say, like a liar. The ball is tossed your way. You go for a stylish one-handed catch. It glances off your palm, smacks you in the face, and lands with a poetic thud at your feet. Someone chuckles. You pretend your eye isn't watering. You try again, and this time, miraculously, you catch it. Gaius claps, and the game begins in earnest. The leather ball flies back and forth with increasing speed. You bob and weave, flail and grunt, each catch a victory, each throw a hazard. Your arms are flapping, your ankles wobble. You are sweating more than seems medically advisable. Then, on your 6th pass, your calf cramps. It seizes up with the force of divine disapproval. You yelp, loudly. The ball hits you in the shoulder. You attempt to mask your agony with a manly grunt, but it sounds more like a squeaky hinge. "You all right?" someone asks. "Just stretching." You wheeze, limping in a small, painful circle. You hobble off the court, dignity trailing behind like a deflated bladder. One of the wrestlers calls out, "Warm up next. Time, friend," before returning to pinning a merchant to the sand in what appears to be a debate over grain tariffs expressed through body slams. You settle onto a stone bench, massaging your leg and reflecting on your choices. Around you, the games continue. A pair of older men spar with wooden weights, moving slowly and muttering about their joints. A boy chases a runaway ball that bounces into the oiling area, where it is immediately declared sacred by a drunk philosopher. There is a kind of chaotic grace to it all, an ancient Zumba class with more bruises and fewer leggings. Despite the noise, the sweat, and the mild scent of regret, everyone seems to be enjoying themselves. Even the man limping off the wrestling mat with a broken sandal and a huge smile. Someone offers you a fig. You accept it. It's squishy. You eat it anyway. Behind you, a group of men discusses strategy for tomorrow's chariot race. One insists his cousin's horse is blessed by Mars. Another claims, "That's cheating." A third suggests bribing the charioteer with wine and very specific compliments. You nod approvingly. It's the Roman way. Meanwhile, the wrestling match ends when one man slips on a patch of oil and face plants into the sand. Everyone applauds. He takes a bow. You wonder if this is how gladiators train, sweaty, slightly absurd, and surrounded by people yelling unsolicited advice. Eventually, your calf loosens up and your shame fades into the general humidity. You consider going back in for another round of Trigon, but then you remember the philosopher's niece looked more horrified than impressed. Better to retreat while you still have both eyebrows. You head back toward the tepidarium, your muscles aching, your ego bruised, and your fig finished. Congratulations. You've survived Roman athleticism. You didn't win, but you also didn't break anything permanently. Probably. You've earned a rest, a rinse, and a quiet lie down. And maybe, just maybe, a story to tell about the time you nearly bested Gaius in ball tossing and only cried once. Feeling peckish? Vendors roam the halls offering wine, olives, figs, and nuts. The hygiene level of these snacks is suspicious. You eat a fig anyway. It tastes like ambition and mildew. You chase it with a lukewarm wine that was definitely bottled in someone's basement. Welcome to the culinary corner of the Roman bathhouse experience. Because what better place to snack than in a room full of half-naked strangers glistening with sweat and oil? The vendors here are persistent. They wander through the steam with trays balanced on one shoulder and a sales pitch always locked and loaded. Figs, olives, wine fit for Bacchus. You're not sure if Bacchus would touch this stuff with a 10-foot laurel branch, but you're too hungry to be picky. Your first mistake is accepting the fig. It's soft, almost too soft. You take a bite. It's sweet, but with a slight aftertaste of regret. Somewhere between overripe and fermented. You tell yourself it adds character. You chew faster, like that'll help. It doesn't. Next, a small bowl of olives. They're green, glossy, and floating in something oily that may or may not be intentional. You pop one into your mouth. It's salty, very salty. Like the ocean got jealous and took up brining as a hobby. A nearby bather nods in approval and offers you a handful of walnuts from his own pouch. You hesitate. He insists. You accept because refusing would be rude, and you're already on thin social ice after declining to join his nephew's poetry circle. The walnuts are fine, a little stale, a little sandy, possibly shared among 6 strangers before reaching you. But you've already eaten a questionable fig, so what's one more bad decision? Then comes the wine. Oh, the wine. It's poured from a clay jug shaped like a satyr, which feels aggressive. The vendor sloshes it into a cup with the confidence of someone who has never tasted his own product. The cup is slightly chipped and smells faintly of vinegar. You sip. It burns. Not in the oaky with notes of cherry way, but in the "was this stored in a boot" way. It's sour, warm, and might actually be trying to ferment further in your stomach. You sip again, because you paid for it. And because you're Roman now, and part of that means pretending things taste better than they do, the man next to you raises his cup. "Vintage 17, he says proudly. "Great year for accidental wine." You nod solemnly, as if you understand wine vintages and aren't currently wondering if this counts as drinking vinegar through peer pressure. As you nibble your way through this menu of maybes, you realize something. The bathhouse isn't just for bathing. It's an entire lifestyle ecosystem. There's exercise, gossip, poetry, politics, and snacks. Everything a Roman citizen needs to feel mildly ill in the company of strangers. Another vendor approaches, offering honey cakes. You perk up. That sounds safe. You buy one. It's small, dense, and vaguely sticky. You take a bite. It tastes like someone tried to recreate dessert using only breadcrumbs and ambition. Still, it's better than the olives. Barely. Behind you, 2 men argue over whether the figs taste better with salt or vinegar. You didn't know either was an option. You also didn't know figs could be weaponized, but the one currently fermenting in your belly suggests otherwise. A child walks past gnawing on what appears to be a roasted mouse. You pretend it's a sausage. The vendor selling it winks at you. You move seats. Every few minutes someone yells for more wine. Another fig. Extra olives. It's a constant cycle of snacking and steaming. You're beginning to understand why no one leaves the bathhouse. They can't. They're too full, too dizzy, and too committed to pretending they feel amazing. You try another bite of your honey cake. It's still sticky, still confusing, but you're oddly okay with it now. Maybe the wine is working. Or maybe you've simply resigned yourself to a culinary purgatory of figs and fermented ambition. Nearby, someone belches loudly and declares that food always tastes better in the steam. You nod along because that's what people do here. Nod, snack, and suppress the urge to ask if the sponge on a stick and the fig vendors share a storage room. Eventually, the vendor with the satyr jug returns, asking if you'd like a refill. You pause. You hesitate. You accept. Because in Rome, bathhouse etiquette is a game of appearances, and nothing says civilized citizen like sipping sour wine while sweating through your 3rd olive. Congratulations, you've eaten the food. You've survived the wine. You may regret it later, but for now, you're full, slightly tipsy, and culturally assimilated. And maybe that's the most Roman thing of all. Congratulations. You've earned a massage. A large man named Lucius pours olive oil on your back and proceeds to rearrange your skeleton. It hurts. Then it hurts more. Then he slaps you and says you're cured. You nod because you fear him. Lucius is not a man. Lucius is a boulder with emotions. He stands at least a head taller than you, shaped like a statue of Mars if Mars skipped leg day, and focused exclusively on shoulders and intimidating grunts. He doesn't ask questions. He simply gestures to the stone massage table like a judge issuing a sentence. You lie down, face pressed to the cold slab, body glistening with bathhouse sweat, shame, and now oil. Lucius uncorks a large amphora of olive oil, which he pours onto your back with the enthusiasm of someone marinating a roast. The oil is warm, briefly comforting. That feeling lasts 3 seconds, because now the rubbing begins. It is not delicate. It is not relaxing. It is an excavation. Lucius begins at your shoulders, kneading them with the tenderness of a man trying to find a coin in wet cement. You make a sound. It's not a word. It's something between a yelp and a question. Lucius responds with a grunt that might mean breathe through it, or I enjoy your suffering. He works down your spine, pressing with the full weight of his disapproval. Vertebrae pop like overripe grapes. You think you feel your ancestors crying out. Your left eye twitches. You start to see colors that don't exist in the known spectrum. Relax, Lucius mutters. You try, you fail. At some point, he climbs on the table. You know this because you can now feel the shadow of doom hovering above your kidneys. His elbow lands squarely between 2 ribs that have done nothing wrong. You involuntarily confess to a crime you didn't commit just to make it stop. He moves to your legs. Good. Maybe this will be gentler. It is not. He grabs your thigh like it owes him money, and begins what can only be described as a tug of war between your muscles and your will to live. You hear something pop. Lucius nods, approvingly. You try not to weep. Other bathers look over occasionally, usually when you make a sound that resembles a goat being exercised. They nod, knowingly. This is normal. This is healing. Your arms are next. Lucius twists one behind your back in a move that feels suspiciously like gladiator training. He pulls your fingers, then cracks your knuckles one by one. You didn't even know knuckles could make that noise. You begin to believe in Roman magic, or maybe just dislocation. Then, the finale, the slap. It arrives without warning. An open-handed, oily smack to your back that echoes across the massage chamber like a drum roll of humiliation. You flinch. Lucius grunts. You're done, he says, as if you've passed a test. A trial by pressure point. You peel yourself off the table like a damp scroll and attempt to stand. Your joints argue. Your back sounds like a chorus of snapping twigs. Your legs buckle briefly, but you regain your footing. Lucius claps you on the shoulder gently, but it still sends a ripple down your spine. Better now, he says. It is not a question. You nod. Slowly, carefully. You do not make eye contact. Lucius hands you a rough linen towel, which you wrap around yourself with the dignity of a man who has just been tenderized like meat and lived to tell the tale. Your skin is glistening, your limbs are trembling, but your posture is suspiciously upright. Maybe something got realigned. Maybe you've just lost the ability to slouch. As you exit the massage chamber, another client takes your place. He gives you a polite nod. You return it, silently warning him with your eyes. You shuffle back into the main bath, body humming like a badly tuned lyre. Every step is a reminder that Lucius has touched places you didn't know existed. You are looser, taller, possibly missing a bone. Other bathers smile knowingly. You are now one of them, a veteran, a survivor of the Roman deep tissue assault ritual. You settle into a warm bench and reflect on life, on pain, on how quickly a man can be reduced to oil, sweat, and existential regret. But oddly, you do feel better. Maybe. Congratulations. You've been massaged by Lucius. Your spine will never be the same. And somehow, that's okay. In the baths, walls have ears. Senators whisper bribes between scrubs. Slaves eavesdrop for coin. You hear two men plotting something involving grain ships and a suspicious priest. You pretend not to notice. You suddenly feel very patriotic and very nervous. This is no longer just a bathhouse. It's a Roman version of a smoke-filled backroom if the smoke was steam, and everyone was naked, glistening, and vaguely threatening. The Laconicum, or steam room, is where politics happens in its most unfiltered, sweaty form. You step into the chamber thinking you'll just sit quietly, let your pores open up, and maybe nap beside a pot-bellied merchant, humming the Aeneid. But as the mist wraps around your body and the echoes of dripping water fade into the background, you realize this place is alive with secrets. Every conversation here is whispered, every sentence half-spoken, every glance slightly too long. The steam doesn't just open pores, it opens mouths. To your left, two men speak in hushed tones, their backs turned to the room but their words swirling freely into the fog. One wears a senator's ring, still glinting despite the condensation. The other has the tan lines of someone who commands ships rather than people. If the grain arrives late, the senator murmurs, we blame the priest. He's already unpopular. People think he cursed the forum fountain. You nod subtly. Not to them, gods, no, don't draw attention, but to yourself. Mental note. Never drink from cursed fountains. Also, avoid priests with poor public relations. The senator continues. A few denarii to the right mouths, and no one will ask questions. Just a miscalculation. Weather, perhaps. The other man chuckles. Or divine judgment. They clink cups of lukewarm wine like it's a blood pact. You shift slightly on your stone bench, trying to look disinterested. You pretend to inspect your toenails, a move that suggests total innocence and mild athlete's foot. Internally, you're panicking. You've read about this sort of thing in scrolls. People disappear for overhearing less. Across the room, a pair of slaves massage. A wealthy merchant who is loudly and performatively pretending not to listen to anything. But you see it in his eyes, the squint of calculation, the slight tilt of the head. He's cataloguing every word. He's not alone. Near the entrance, a wiry man with exceptionally clean ears and a suspiciously calm demeanor sits quietly, dabbing sweat from his brow and making no effort to interact. That's a spy if you've ever seen one. Or an extremely focused philosopher. Either way, danger. You catch snippets from all corners. If Rufus wins the bid, we're all doomed. His cousin's slave saw the document. Locked in a wine jar. They'll never trace it back if we use coded poetry. Coded poetry? You're not even sure you understand regular poetry. And now it's a political weapon? You consider taking notes but realize you have neither parchment nor a will to be arrested. One man lowers his voice to a dangerous whisper and utters a name very slowly as if dragging it across hot coals. Everyone in earshot stiffens. You don't recognize the name, but from the shared silence that follows, you're pretty sure you should have. Probably someone recently stabbed. Or soon to be. Just then, someone sneezes violently, breaking the tension. Everyone chuckles nervously. The man who sneezed is offered a fig. He declines. Wise choice. The conversation shifts. A senator complains about taxes. A soldier mentions troop movements on the northern frontier loudly enough that it seems accidental, but pointedly enough that you know it's not. Information is currency here, and everyone's trading. You lean back, trying to look blissfully unaware, like a man simply trying to sweat out his poor decisions, not absorb high-level state secrets through his earlobes. But your heart is racing. Your palms are sweating, and you're 98% certain someone just implicated themselves in treason, using a metaphor about bad cheese. As the steam thickens, so does the paranoia. You begin to realize that no one comes here purely to relax. The bath is just a setting. The real event is the theater of whispers, favors, and silent nods. Finally, A hand claps your shoulder. You freeze. It's a merchant you vaguely recognize. "Good steam today, eh?" he says with a grin. You laugh, nervously. "Great steam." He nods once. You didn't hear anything. You nod back. "Hear what?" "Exactly," he says. He walks off, probably to bribe a judge with raisins. You sit very still. Eventually you decide your skin is sufficiently steamed, and your sense of national loyalty has reached a breaking point. You exit the steam room slowly, pretending your tremble is from the heat, and not from the realization that you've just witnessed an entire week's worth of illegal negotiations while sitting on a wet rock. Congratulations. You've survived political espionage in the steam room. Now go wash your ears out. Just in case. The Romans pride themselves on hygiene, but let's be honest. You're all sharing the same lukewarm water. Strigils are reused. Sponges are shared. And that guy definitely didn't wash his hands after the latrine. You are technically clean but emotionally filthy. To understand Roman hygiene is to accept a grand contradiction. They are obsessed with bathing, and yet everything around you feels like a festival of invisible germs if anyone in ancient Rome knew what a germ was. Which they didn't. Which explains a lot. From a distance, it all looks clean. The marble shines. The pools glisten. The scent of oils and herbs lingers in the air. And every Roman you meet will tell you that they are the pinnacle of civilized cleanliness, especially compared to those barbarian Gauls, who apparently think bathing once a week is showing off. But up close, things get murky. Literally. Let's start with the water. That beautiful, inviting water that you just spent 45 minutes soaking in while a man 2 feet away exfoliated aggressively and sneezed with abandon. It's not getting changed between guests. There's no filtration system, no chlorination, no concept of clean cycles. If the water looks cloudy, that's not your imagination. That's the collective essence of hundreds of citizens, slowly diffusing into a warm human soup. You were in there, you're still in there. That slippery feeling on your leg wasn't a fish. And then there's the strigil. Ah, the humble curved metal scraper. It's meant to remove oil, sweat, dirt and dignity from your skin before entering the bath. But the same strigil often gets used on multiple people, one after another, with a quick rinse in the nearest bucket of water. That bucket? Dubious, at best. By the time it's your turn, that water is essentially a broth. Your masseur, Lucius, remember him? The man who folded you into a different shape used a strigil that may have been used earlier on a senator, a beggar, and possibly a goat. You try not to think about it. You fail. Then there's the oil. Scented, luxurious, poured liberally across every Roman torso like it's a holy sacrament. But no one seems to question where it comes from, or how long it's been sitting in that communal jar. It's been exposed to steam, fingers, backwash, and a dozen flies who are now living their best lives. And the oil doesn't just disappear when scraped. It collects in little runnels on the bathhouse floor, forming glistening puddles of mystery that no one wants to mop. Because mops don't exist yet, just slaves with damp rags and dead eyes. And we mustn't forget the latrines. No, never forget. Because the man currently floating past you in the tepidarium, making polite conversation about gladiator rankings, 'tis the same man you saw earlier, balancing precariously over the communal toilet trench, and failing to locate the shared sponge with any real precision. He waved. You waved back. It was a mistake. He didn't wash his hands. No one washes their hands. That's not a thing. You just carry on. Public health, in Roman terms, is mostly about vibes. If it smells like lavender, and you're not actively covered in mud, you're considered clean. People will compliment your glow, which is just sweat, oil, and a thin film of other people. And yet, despite all this, the bathhouse is considered the crown jewel of Roman hygiene. To be fair, it's better than nothing, which is what most other cultures are doing at this point in history. Roman baths are a huge step up from wandering into a river with a handful of grass and low expectations. But still, you've been stripped, scraped, soaked, oiled, and massaged by strangers who may or may not have lice. You've eaten figs from a questionable vendor with suspiciously damp fingernails. You've been submerged in communal water that smells vaguely like ambition and armpit. And now you're about to dry off with a communal towel that has never met soap. And this is considered luxury. Even the air is suspect. The steam itself may be holy, but it's also filled with the exhalations of men who gargled vinegar and argued about tax policy. Every breath you take is 20% eucalyptus and 80% someone else's lungs. And yet, you do feel different. Not clean, but reset, rebooted, slightly more Roman. You've played your part in the grand theatre of hygiene, and like all good theatre, it's more about the illusion than the reality. You are technically clean, officially rinsed, socially acceptable. Emotionally, you'll need a moment. Congratulations. You've emerged from the illusion of cleanliness alive. Now go find your sandals and pray they're still where you left them. Yes, there are children here. Screaming, splashing, slipping. A small boy throws a sponge at your head. No one stops him. He's the son of a tribune. You politely smile while internally filing a complaint with the Department of Historical Injustice. You did not come to the baths to babysit. And yet here you are midway through what was supposed to be a relaxing float in the tepidarium, ducking airborne sponges and dodging stampeding 8-year-olds who appear to have consumed their body weight in honey cakes. You scan the room, looking for signs of responsible parenting. There are none. The closest thing to adult supervision is a grandmother in the corner knitting something vaguely sock-shaped and muttering about the downfall of Roman values. You silently agree. A toddler cannonballs into the warm pool with the precision of a practiced saboteur. Water splashes into your eyes, your wine, and a nearby senator's scroll. The senator sighs, dabs it with his toga, and resumes reading, apparently numb to the chaos. This is not his first rodeo. This is a Tuesday. Another child, maybe 6. Maybe feral, grabs your towel and uses it as a cape to chase a companion around the colonnade. You are now damp and confused. A vendor walks by offering more figs. You decline, firmly. In the corner of the bathhouse, a game of who can yell the loudest is well underway. The current champion is a girl with astonishing lung capacity and an emotional range that shifts from triumphant to betrayed in under 2 seconds. She loses a sandal. She screams. She finds the sandal. She screams again. It's unclear whether it's a victory or a moral crisis. You attempt to retreat into the caldarium, thinking maybe the heat will discourage the younger crowd. It does not. A small boy is in the corner using a strigil as a lightsaber, swinging it with the wild grace of a child who knows his father, commands 5,000 troops and cannot be told no. A nearby bather makes the mistake of scolding him. The boy responds by calling him a fat-bellied donkey in flawless Latin. Everyone pretends not to laugh. The bather pretends not to hear. The child wins. You spot a small group of slightly older children playing a game of who can hold their breath the longest. It quickly devolves into who can pretend to drown the most dramatically. An attendant rushes over, not to intervene, just to place bets. One particularly energetic child has taken up the noble art of sponge warfare, armed with 2 waterlogged cleaning devices and no sense of restraint. He locks eyes with you. You shake your head. He throws. It hits your chest with a wet, squelchy thwop. He raises his arms in victory. You clap slowly, because resistance is futile. You search for their parents again. Still no sign. Maybe they're in the frigidarium, cooling off their nerves. Or maybe they've simply given up and joined a philosophy circle to emotionally distance themselves from the chaos they've unleashed. A splash erupts behind you, someone's slipped. It's the same child from earlier, now face down and yelling, "I meant to do that." A nearby slave hands him another sponge. He hurls it into the steam like a tiny oiled catapult operator. You duck again. There are moments brief, fleeting, where the noise softens. A lull in the screaming. A rare ceasefire in the sponge wars. You exhale. Perhaps peace is possible. Then someone shrieks. It's unclear if it's joy or injury. Maybe both. The games resume. A pair of twins decide to race across the slippery floor. You mutter a prayer to Jupiter for their balance. One makes it. The other falls spectacularly, slides into a vendor's sandal tray, and emerges laughing. The vendor doesn't. He's seen his entire inventory turn into a child's sled. He simply stares into the middle distance and whispers, "I used to be a potter." And yet, no one stops them, because they're children. Roman children. Tiny, tunic-wearing tyrants with powerful families, no indoor voices, and an intimate knowledge of their own impunity. You, a humble citizen, can only sit there, wet and bewildered, clutching your cup of wine like a lifeline and wondering if the baths were always like this, or if you're just aging into bitterness like a fine garum. Congratulations. You've survived the splash zone. You are clean. You are damp. You are 80% sure you were just pickpocketed by a child. But you lived to tell the tale. And next time, you're coming during senior hours. Behind the marbled facade, dozens of slaves keep the fires burning, the water flowing, and the floors tolerably clean. They're paid nothing, thanked never, and occasionally get scalded by accident. Your relaxation comes courtesy of their endless, unwashed suffering. It's easy to be dazzled by the grandeur of the Roman bathhouse. The soaring columns, the intricate mosaics, the endless fog of scented steam. From your marble bench, you might even start to think, wow, this is luxury. And it is. But like all ancient luxuries, it's powered by one invisible engine, human misery. You don't see them when you first arrive. Slaves move in the shadows, their footsteps silent, their presence barely acknowledged. But they are everywhere, heating the water, stoking the fires, hauling buckets, wiping the floors, scraping the strigils, unclogging the drains. That clean, shimmering pool you soaked in earlier? It's the result of about 30 people quietly battling algae, and other unmentionables with rags, sand, and sheer willpower. Down below, beneath the baths, is the hypercaust, a network of brick chambers and flues, where slaves shovel wood into roaring furnaces to heat the floors and water above. It's like working inside a dragon's lungs. The air is thick with smoke and sweat. The temperature could melt sandals. Burns are common. Breathing issues are expected. Breaks are myths. One young boy spends his entire day crawling through the underfloor space, checking for cracks and soot buildup. He hasn't seen sunlight since the Saturnalia festival. His reward for a job well done? Not getting yelled at. His punishment for a mistake? Getting yelled at louder. Back upstairs, another group mops the bathhouse floors using old rags and buckets of grey water that may or may not be clean. They dodge guests, slip on soap, and get blamed when someone steps in something unpleasant. One slave is assigned to pick up dropped sponges. You don't want that job. The sponges are damp in ways you don't ask about. A teenaged girl stands near the latrine, armed with a jug of vinegar and a facial expression that suggests she's left her soul in the drain. Her task? Managing the communal sponge supply. She replaces them, rinses them, and yes, sometimes retrieves them. People do not make eye contact with her. It's safer that way. Back in the massage room, the oil is refilled, not by magic, but by a hunched old man who carries it from a storeroom half a mile away, 3 amphorae at a time. He's walked the same path for 20 years. The stones remember his footsteps. The bathers do not. And let's not forget the towel boys. They sit in a corner, folding and unfolding the same scratchy linens all day, making sure there's always a clean, or cleanish, towel ready for your Royal Roman rear end. If one is late or improperly folded, they get swatted. Not metaphorically, with an actual stick. A towel stick, probably invented specifically for them. One slave is tasked with announcing the bathhouse's opening and closing hours. He does so with a small gong and a surprisingly enthusiastic voice. No one listens to him, not even once. There's even a man whose entire job is to pick up dropped fruit. Grapes, figs, nuts it. Doesn't matter. He wears a small sack and an expression of deep philosophical resignation. You make a silent pact never to drop your food again. And yet, despite the sheer number of people who make the baths function like a well-oiled well, literally oiled machine. Not a single one is acknowledged. You will hear more praise for the architectural arch than for the man cleaning up after someone's wine-related accident in the tepidarium. When you sigh with relief into a perfectly heated pool, somewhere below, a man is coughing into a soot-lined furnace. When you feel refreshed after a deep tissue massage, a boy is outside being berated for misplacing the oil jug. When you smile at how peaceful the bathhouse feels, a girl is on her knees, scrubbing vomit off a mosaic tile of Neptune. Because Roman luxury isn't self-sustaining. It's built on backs, bent ones. You shift slightly on your stone seat, suddenly aware of how many hands have moved in silence to make your leisure possible. You sip your wine, which was probably poured by someone who hasn't tasted grapes in a decade. Congratulations. You are clean, rested, and complicit. Now, take a moment. Whisper a thank you into the steam. They won't hear it, but you will. If you're a woman, your bath time is likely limited to separate hours or an entirely different facility. Fewer crowds, slightly more privacy, and significantly more judgmental stares. Also, the best gossip happens here, if you can get past the aunties and their suspicious side eyes. You show up to the baths with a towel, a comb, and the quiet hope that maybe, just maybe, this will be the one day the matrone don't scan your sandals and sigh disapprovingly. Spoiler, they do. Before you even pass the changing room, two older women are already whispering about your hemline, your posture, and probably your marriage prospects. You haven't even gotten wet yet. Unlike the chaotic, co-ed circus of the men's hours, women's bathing is a slower, more socially calibrated affair. There is less shouting, less naked wrestling, and far more passive-aggressive humming. Every woman here has opinions, and if you're lucky, they'll only share half of them out loud. The schedule itself is ridiculous. Depending on your city and how progressive your local magistrate feels, women are often crammed into the least desirable time slots early morning or late evening. You arrive either while the bathhouse is still warming up or just as it's being drained. It's like trying to book a spa day at a restaurant that's closing in 10 minutes and already cleaning the floors. Once inside, you quickly learn the rhythm. The apoditerium, the changing room, is more like a runway mixed with a tribunal. You disrobe while subtly scanning everyone else's jewelry, sandals, and whether their tunics are last season. The wealthier women wear silk, the practical ones wear linen, and one woman has shown up in full makeup and a suspiciously sheer wrap. No one says anything. Everyone notices. You place your belongings in a cubby guarded by a slave girl who looks about 12 and already exhausted by society. You give her a friendly nod. She gives you the 1,000-yard stare of someone who has seen too many stolen combs and overheard too many conversations about cousin marriages. Then, into the tepidarium. It's quieter than the men's side. The water is still, the air filled with the soft murmur of complaints. Someone is always discussing the price of lentils. Someone else is subtly trying to one-up everyone with their knowledge of herbal remedies. Did you know crushed bay leaves clear the complexion? Only if you steep them under a full moon. That's for freckles, darling. The younger women cling to the corners, giggling behind hands, avoiding the direct fire of the older matrons. These ladies are experienced, sharp-tongued, and somehow always up to date on whose husband just bought a second villa and why that's suspicious. You try to mind your own business. You fail, because the gossip here is Olympian in scope. It's not just who's wearing what, but who paid for it, who saw it first, and whether the stitching indicates a secret affair with a tailor. A noblewoman walks in. The temperature rises 2 degrees from sheer tension. Someone mentions a senator's wife having trouble at home. 3 heads swivel so fast you hear necks crack. There's also the issue of the masseuse. Unlike the men's side, where burly ex-gladiators crack spines for fun, women are attended by soft-spoken slaves trained in the delicate art of making you feel relaxed while silently judging your pores. Your massage comes with unsolicited skincare advice. You're using fish oil? Brave choice. Bold. If you're from the upper classes, you might even bring your own slave to do the bathing for you. That's right. You lie back while someone else rubs you down with oil and scrapes it off, all while listening to your opinions about your neighbor's new fresco. This sounds luxurious, until you realize your bath assistant is also memorizing your every complaint and reporting it to her cousin, who works in another noble household. The hot room, or caldarium, is no better. Steam plus opinions equals volcanic eruptions. Someone has brought in perfume. It's overwhelming. Someone else glares. A third woman sneezes and is immediately accused of being cursed. The room is filled with oil, suspicion, and scented shade. At some point, a child runs through. She is definitely not supposed to be here. She knocks over a tray of figs. The figs roll dramatically across the floor like tiny scandal grenades. The room watches in silence as her mother appears, red-faced, apologizing profusely. The matrones say nothing. Judgment has already been passed. Eventually, you retreat to the cold plunge, not because you want to close your pores, but because you need emotional distance. It's freezing, but blessedly silent. No gossip, no perfume, no thinly veiled critiques of your sandals. Just water, goosebumps, and the quiet realization that, somehow, women's bathing hours are both more refined and more dangerous than anything happening on the men's side. Congratulations. You've survived the aunties, the aromatherapy warfare, and the societal pressure of appearing effortless while being emotionally waterboarded by passive-aggressive compliments. You are clean. You are exhausted. You'll be back next week. Don't splash. Don't shout. Don't walk too fast on the marble. Don't accidentally step into the wrong room naked. Every bathhouse has its own unspoken rules, and breaking them earns you the scorn of an old man with a towel and no filter. You thought this was going to be a place of relaxation, not a silent obstacle course where one wrong move gets you judged harder than a gladiator with stage fright. But here in the Roman Thermae, decorum is king, and etiquette, violations are treated with all the solemnity of a Senate scandal. It begins at the door. You walk in to confidently mistake number one. Veterans of the bathhouse scene give you a once-over, not in admiration, in assessment. Like you're a new gladiator in the arena, except instead of swords, you're armed with a poorly tied towel and uncertain sandals. Step 2. The apoditerium, or changing room. You remove your tunic slowly, carefully, trying to mimic the smooth, almost ritualistic disrobing of seasoned bathers. The trick is not to fumble. If your elbow gets stuck or your toga flips backward like a rebellious sheet, the room notices. They always notice. Next, your belongings go into a storage cubby. Do not, under any circumstances, shove your sandals in carelessly or block someone else's space. That's basically declaring war on whoever owns the next cubby, and do not ask for a better spot. This is not a hotel. This is ancient passive-aggressive territory. Then it's time to enter the bathing circuit. And here's where things get delicate. The marble floors, slipperier than Roman politics. Walk too fast and you risk a dramatic fall. Walk too slow and you block traffic. One old man behind you clears his throat and mutters something about youths today. You are 36. And then there's the temperature progression, the sacred journey from warm to hot to freezing. You do not go out of order. Tepidarium first, then caldarium, then the frigidarium. If you reverse it, you confuse the system, and possibly enrage a dozen shirtless philosophers trying to maintain their routine. Noise level: low, very low. Speak in hushed tones. Loud laughter: forbidden. Excessive splashing: grounds for exile. The man across the pool scowls at you for breathing too enthusiastically. You nod apologetically. You consider holding your breath for the rest of the experience. There are also seating protocols. Don't sit too close to someone unless invited. Personal space, while limited, still exists, especially when everyone is essentially marinated in oil and rumors. Choose your bench wisely. Sitting too near a high-ranking official might get you kicked out. Sitting too close to someone in a philosophical debate will trap you in a 1-hour monologue about the soul. And the strigil? There are rules. Don't scrape too loudly. Don't let the used oil fall onto communal surfaces. Absolutely do not flick any residue into the pool. That happened once. A young man did it near the bath attendant. The scream still echoes in the walls. He's probably still hiding in the countryside. Even the use of the communal sponge comes with rules. It must be rinsed thoroughly after use. It must be placed back gently, not tossed like a beanbag. And if you drop it, oh gods, if you drop it, you must retrieve it, apologize to the floor, and then burn your memory of the event forever. The biggest faux pas, of course, is wandering into the wrong room. Accidentally entering the women's hours will get you more than a slap on the wrist. It'll get you shouted out of the complex by a chorus of angry matronae and possibly cursed with a fertility hex. Wearing jewelry in the pool? Tacky? Bringing snacks? Depends on the snack. Loudly bragging about your estate in front of men who rent tunics? Dangerous. And let's not forget towel management. You must keep your towel draped in a nonchalant yet intentional way. Too loose, and you're inviting scandal. Too tight, and you're trying too hard. There is a balance. The veterans have perfected it. You, meanwhile, have already retied yours 6 times and are dangerously close to becoming a cautionary tale. Despite all this, no one will tell you the rules. There is no welcome scroll, no frescoed diagram of do and do not. You learn by suffering. You learn by doing something wrong and hearing a cough that somehow sounds like judgment incarnate. A man stares at you for using the wrong exit. You retreat and re-enter the proper door. A child points at your sandals, which are apparently on backwards. You correct them. A matron glares as you dry off too close to the heating vent. You apologize to the vent. Eventually, you start to blend in. Your pace slows. Your towel sits just right. You stop making eye contact, and people stop sighing at you. Congratulations. You've mastered bathhouse etiquette. You are no longer an outsider. You are an oiled, silent participant in Rome's most quietly judgmental wellness ritual. But the old man with the towel still doesn't like you. And that's okay. No one knows why he's angry. He was probably born that way. Baths weren't always relaxing. Boilers exploded. Floors collapsed. One time a governor's pet lion escaped into the frigidarium. Every Roman bathhouse had at least one incident involving nudity and a structural failure. You've read about it. You might be living it. You came here for relaxation, a little hot steam, maybe some quiet, time with a questionable fig, and a side of social eavesdropping. What you didn't expect was to be halfway through a massage when the floor vibrated like Neptune had burped beneath it. The bather next to you paused mid-rant about grain taxes, frowned and said, "Ah, again." The thing is, these baths are marvels of engineering, but marvel in this case is a kind word for teetering miracle held together with bricks, hope, and a bit of goat grease. The massive furnace systems that keep the caldarium piping hot are called hypercausts, and they rely on continuous fire beneath your very feet. What could possibly go wrong with a system that mixes open flame, steam, and wood infrastructure? Oh, right, everything. Let's start with the fires. Hypercaust fires burn day and night. You don't notice it up top, just that the floors are toasty, and your feet haven't gone numb since you entered. But below the marble walkways, a half-dozen overworked slaves are shoveling wood like their lives depend on it. They do, desperately trying to maintain consistent temperatures while also not catching the whole place on fire. Sometimes they fail. Historical records mention more than a few bathhouses going up like over-oiled sausages on a grill. Picture it. You're lying in the tepidarium, mid-gossip, when a thin line of smoke snakes out of the wall. Someone tries to fan it away with their towel. Someone else insists it's just incense. Then a section of ceiling collapses, and the next thing you know, half the attendees are streaking through the forum wrapped in panic and bath water. Now imagine floods. Most of the larger bathhouses rely on aqueduct-fed water systems. Yes, incredibly advanced, but not exactly regulated by anyone with a checklist or a degree in civil engineering. All it takes is one cracked pipe, one jammed valve, or one angry deity with a grudge against public hygiene, and suddenly the entire complex is underwater. It's less a spa day, and more a water park designed by Poseidon on a bad day. You haven't lived until you've seen 20 Romans in their birthday suits wading chest deep through the changing room, arguing about whose sandal floated away first. One man insists his was hand-stitched in Carthage. Another swears he saw a turtle. Neither of them knows how to swim. And then there are the animal-related incidents. Romans have pets. Some of them are adorable little dogs, birds, the occasional well-behaved goat. But some Roman elites keep more exotic creatures, like, say, lions. When a minor governor from the provinces decides to bring his prized lion, Lucius the Mild, for a little splash in the frigidarium, things go predictably south. One slip of a leash, one startled bather, and boom, chaos. Lucius, it turns out, hates cold water and really hates loud noises. He sprints through the corridors, tail high, scattering fig vendors and philosophers like bowling pins. You're trying to duck behind a pillar while someone's aunt climbs onto a statue of Minerva for safety. The lion finally calms down when someone throws it a sausage. The man who brought the sausage is hailed as a hero. The man who brought the lion is quietly banned from bathhouse privileges. And yet, these disasters are considered normal, part of the experience. A little risk with your rinse. It's not just natural disasters either. Human error plays a big role. Last year, someone slipped on a fig and broke their ankle, causing a pile-up in the caldarium doorway. A fistfight broke out over towel theft. A poet tried to perform an original work in the steam room and was booed into the plunge pool. The bathhouse isn't just a spa. It's a live-action farce with unlimited entry and no refunds. Even today, as you sit in the tepidarium, you notice a suspicious dripping sound from the ceiling. It's probably nothing, or it's the first sign of a minor collapse. Either way, your neighbor shrugs and says, "Better than the one last month." You nod in agreement, because, surprisingly, you get it. The occasional fireball or roaming lion is a small price to pay for the chance to soak in hot water and hear some scandal about Claudius's new girlfriend. Congratulations. You survived your bath. Maybe. Just don't ask where the fig you're eating came from, or why the floor is warmer than usual, or whether that rumble you just felt was thunder, or the boiler making another announcement. Many baths are dedicated to gods like Asclepius or Hygeia. Statues overlook your every move, judging your loofah technique. Some bathers even make offerings a coin, a flower, or a whispered wish that no one sees their weird birthmark. You wouldn't think it. Standing half naked in a steamy room next to a man named Gaius who just sneezed into the communal pool, but this place is sacred. Not just in the "please let no one slip on that fig again" kind of way, but truly, ritually, piously sacred. This is no mere spa. It's a temple. A very moist one. Hovering in every alcove, carved in marble and perpetually unblinking, are the divine overseers of your hygiene. The most popular? Asclepius, god of medicine, healing, and hopefully that rash on your inner elbow. His statue usually depicts him with a beard, a staff, and a snake coiled around it, silently watching you try to dry your feet without toppling over like a wounded flamingo. Beside him, if you're lucky, you'll find Hygeia, goddess of cleanliness and sanitation. She's beautiful, serene, and utterly disappointed in the sponge choices of the man to your left. Her presence is meant to remind you that bathing isn't just about comfort, it's about moral purity. Physical hygiene reflects inner virtue, which is unfortunate because you're currently wearing a towel you found on the floor and actively ignoring a mysterious toe itch. Bathing here isn't just a routine, it's a ritual. Before entering the water, many Romans pause to acknowledge the gods. Some whisper a prayer, "Let my back not cramp." Others leave offerings, coins, little carved tokens, fragrant herbs wrapped in cloth. One woman leaves a small carved duck. It's unclear if this has divine significance or if she just forgot her child's bath toy. The offering pool is shallow and lined with copper coins, faded flowers, and occasionally accidentally a sandal. No one admits to throwing it in. No one retrieves it. It has become part of the sacred ecosystem. And then there are the superstitions. You're told not to say certain things near the statue's bad luck. Don't point at Asclepius with your left hand. Don't make jokes about the steam resembling a ghost. And definitely don't complain about the cold plunge room in front of Hygeia, unless you want a week of bad hair and fungal surprises. One man kneels before the statue of Fortuna, goddess of luck, just before he enters the tepidarium. He whispers what sounds like "no awkward encounters, please," and tosses a fig into a small offering dish. No one questions it. You wonder briefly if this could work for tax season. Of course, not everyone takes the bath gods seriously. Some treat them more like spiritual lifeguards there for ambience, but unlikely to intervene, unless something really dramatic happens, like another pet lion rampage. Others treat them like sacred Yelp reviewers, hoping to earn divine stars for bathhouse etiquette. Children are often told that if they misbehave, splash too much, hog the oil, or make fun of another bather's back hair, the gods will mark their next bath with an unusually slippery floor. This may or may not be true, but it's highly effective parenting. And yes, even the steam itself is seen as divine. The breath of the gods, one elderly man declares as he sits in the caldarium, eyes closed, arms outstretched. He inhales deeply, then coughs violently for 15 seconds and declares himself healed. Everyone applauds, politely. At certain bathhouses, festivals are held in honor of these bathing deities. Scented oils are poured into the water, musicians play, poets recite very earnest things about the purifying power of steam. Someone usually faints from the heat. It's considered a good omen, and while you're soaking, you notice something. Despite the chaos, the towel mishaps, the lurking disease, the occasional roaming goat, there's a kind of reverence in the air. People lower their voices when near the statue of Asclepius. A woman gently pats the base of Hygeia's pedestal before entering the frigidarium. Someone lights a bit of incense near the drain and murmurs a thank you. Because deep down, no matter how cynical you get, how snarky you feel about public bathing politics, or how strongly the communal sponge smells like regret, there's something oddly comforting about knowing the gods are watching. Judging? Sure. But also, maybe blessing. So you toss in a coin. A small one. Nothing. Too flashy. You whisper your own wish. Something private. Maybe something dumb, and let the steam swallow it whole. Congratulations. You've joined the ranks of thousands of Romans who believe that bathing isn't just about getting clean, it's about getting right. Now dry off before the gods start judging your towel folding skills. Again. You survived. You towel off if you brought one, or air dry like a triumphant gladiator. Your skin is pink. Your dignity is somewhere in the drains. But hey, you feel cleaner than usual. Except your sandals are missing. Again. Standing there, steam swirling around you like you're in a mystical cologne commercial from 2,000 years ago, you assess the damage. One elbow scraped from slipping on a fig. 2 armpits mildly exfoliated by a man named Marcus and his uninvited opinions. 3 internalized grudges from towel-related etiquette crimes. But you're upright, mostly dry, and moderately refreshed. You reach for your towel, which is damp, possibly stolen. Definitely not where you left it. You make eye contact with someone across the room holding a towel suspiciously similar to yours. They raise an eyebrow. You both nod silently. The international sign for "we will never speak of this again." No towel? No problem. You've entered the final stage of the Roman bathhouse ritual, the awkward air-dry shuffle. You step out into the open courtyard, arms slightly extended like a confused bird, and begin the slow dance of evaporative dignity. The breeze is gentle, and so are the judgmental stares of nearby bathers who clearly brought better linens. You console yourself with the knowledge that you still have both your earrings. Probably. You consider the fire-warmed marble benches. They'd be great for drying off, but unfortunately they're already occupied by a philosopher monologuing about the moral implications of body hair. You nod politely, avoid sitting, and continue your slow perimeter walk, hoping to catch a stray gust of wind or divine intervention. Eventually, you make your way back to the apoditerium, the changing room, where your belongings are allegedly waiting in a little cubbyhole watched over by a slave whose expression has not changed in 3 hours. You approach cautiously. You see your tunic, crumpled but intact. You sigh in relief. And then you look down. No sandals. Gone. Again. You scan the room for footwear resembling yours. There are many. All occupied. One pair looks suspiciously like yours, but has been claimed by a man with calf muscles like marble columns and the dead-eyed confidence of someone who wins most arguments by existing louder than you. You briefly consider confronting him, but instead you just nod and back away. You didn't need sandals anyway. You'll walk home barefoot. It's traditional, it's spiritual, it's also extremely painful. You pull your tunic back on. It's slightly damp. It smells like rosemary and regret. You can't be sure if that's from the oil scraping or just the general ambience of the room. Either way, you are now dressed, technically. You notice someone trying to squeeze into their own outfit beside you. They're clearly a first-timer. They've put their belt on backwards, dropped their coin purse, and are now trying to dry their hair with a sandal. You remember your first time. You want to offer help. Instead, you offer silence. It's the Roman way. You exit the changing room with the calm dignity of someone who has been fully steamed, scraped, and humbled. The air outside hits your skin like a cold slap from Jupiter. You inhale deeply. Smells like olives, horses, and ambition. You're back. You walk through the streets of Rome, barefoot and oiled, like some sort of mythological side character who wandered off from a scroll mid-paragraph. Pebbles jab your soles. A dog sniffs your calf. A child points and asks if you're a statue. You don't respond. You're transcending. A friend spots you. "How were the baths?" they ask. You pause. You remember the splash zone, the sponge duel, the fig you stepped on, the man who quoted Cicero while exfoliating. The lion. Maybe. You smile. "Refreshing," you say. They nod, as if they too know that refreshing is code for emotionally scorched, slightly cleaner, and now missing a toenail. You arrive home. Your straw mattress looks more inviting than ever. You lie down, muscles humming, skin slightly pink, mind spinning with rumors you'll definitely pretend not to have heard. You are clean. You are exhausted. You are 80% sure you still have soap in your ear. But most importantly, you survived the bathhouse. And that, in Rome, is no small feat. Because the baths aren't just about bathing, they're about enduring. And you, poor barefooted bather, have endured. Now rest. Tomorrow brings more sandals to lose. After the baths, Romans often nap. You do the same. You lie on a bench, still damp, your muscles loose, your brain gently simmering in leftover steam. You try to remember if that was oil or just very suspicious sweat. You're not quite horizontal, not quite vertical, just flopped at an aesthetically Roman angle on a slightly cracked marble bench that smells faintly of time, humanity, and heat stroke. Your towel has become a sort of emotional support rag, half-heartedly draped over one leg. One sandal is still missing. You've stopped caring, the bathhouse has done its job. You are now the consistency of well-stirred porridge. This is the Roman post-bath ritual. Collapse somewhere that doesn't smell too aggressively of mildew, and achieve a level of semi-consciousness previously reserved for fainting goats. You don't so much sleep as dissolve. Around you, other bathers are also partaking in this sacred stupor. A merchant snores softly on a mosaic of Neptune. A senator is talking in his sleep about tax reform. Someone nearby has completely passed out, with their mouth open, and a grape stuck to their chest. It's unclear how the grape got there. No one asks. This is a judgment-free zone unless you're snoring too loudly. In that case, prepare for an expertly aimed fig to the forehead. As you drift into a nap, your thoughts are soft, slippery things. Did you actually enjoy being slapped with oil by a man named Lucius? Was that woman in the tepidarium flirting or just aggressively blinking? And is your spine supposed to click like that now? No answers come. Only the gentle hum of your overcooked nervous system. You feel like a rotisserie chicken that just realized it's not getting served today. The temperature is perfect, warm enough to keep your pores open, cool enough that your eyebrows have stopped sweating. Somewhere in the distance, someone begins singing a lullaby in Latin. You don't understand the words, but you understand the mood. Slow, mildly confused, and wrapped in steam. You briefly open one eye and spot a child tiptoeing through the nap zone with the determination of someone on a forbidden mission. She's trying to reclaim a dropped snack without waking any adults. She succeeds, then vanishes like a sponge-based ninja. You're not sure if she was real. You shift slightly and let out a groan that sounds both ancient and deeply personal. Your hip is beginning to fuse with the stone. You're fine with it. If this is how statues are made, so be it. Immortality through nap. Someone offers you a fig. You accept it without question, bite into it without checking for bees, and instantly regret everything. It tastes like it was stored in a sandal. You finish it anyway. You are one with the bathhouse now. Flavor is optional. A gentle breeze floats in from an open archway, carrying with it the scent of overripe olives, sun-warmed stone, and that faintly metallic smell of history. You inhale deeply. You immediately regret it. Someone nearby has clearly eaten something they shouldn't have, and now you're part of the aftermath. Still, you're too sleepy to care. The stone under your body begins to cool. Your damp tunic clings to you like a clingy ex who smells of herbs and sweat. You adjust. You close your eyes again. This is bliss. If bliss involves occasional coughing fits and a background soundtrack of philosophical snoring, somewhere in the distance, the bathhouse attendant rings a soft bell, an ancient Roman way of saying, "You don't have to go home, but you can't stay moist here forever." A few bathers groan and rise like soggy zombies. You remain. You have 5 more minutes of unconscious marination to squeeze in. Eventually, the need to move overcomes the desire to fuse with the marble forever. You rise slowly, like a newborn calf wearing a toga. Every joint cracks in protest. You are now both cleaner and weirder than you were 2 hours ago. Your sandals still missing, your dignity irretrievable, your skin glowing in that "I've been lightly poached" sort of way. But your spirit? Oh, your spirit is very tired, and possibly leaking. As you step back into the sunlit street, blinking like a mole emerging from a sacred steam cave, you understand something deeply Roman. The bathhouse doesn't just clean you, it unravels you, peels you apart, stews your worries in scented air and ancient etiquette. And then if you're lucky, it lets you nap just long enough to forget where you left your laundry. Congratulations. You've been oiled, boiled, scraped, steamed, and socially drained. Now, go home. Nap again. You've earned it, probably. The bathhouse is a daily ritual. Tomorrow, you'll return. You'll re-oil, re-sweat, re-scrape, and pretend you didn't just see your landlord's naked uncle trying to flirt with a poet. You are Roman. You are resilient. And you are, at least for now, slightly less disgusting. But not for long, because despite the scented oils and divine steam and philosophical distractions, this is ancient Rome. And ancient Rome is sweaty, funky, dusty. There is no Febreze, no antiperspirant, no tiny cucumber-scented wipes in your purse. The moment you step outside the bathhouse, the city resumes its assault. Your freshly scrubbed skin meets the Roman sun, and immediately regrets it. The cobbled streets radiate heat like baked lasagna stones. A cart of goats passes by. One makes eye contact. The other sneezes in your direction. You consider turning back. But no, you've already bathed today. You're already done. You have one day, one glorious day to pretend you're not just one stressful errand away from smelling like warmed cabbage and gladiator regrets. But Rome is relentless. You get bumped into by a man carrying live eels. Your friend insists you help carry amphorae up 5 flights of stairs. And you trip over a runaway scroll. By the time you reach home, your tunic is damp, your feet are blackened, and you've acquired at least one new mystery itch. So you sigh. Strip off your sandals. Yes, the replacement pair, they're also terrible. And accept your fate. You'll be back at the bathhouse tomorrow. Because you have to be. For a Roman, bathing isn't optional. It's not a nice thing to do if you have time between meetings. It's not a weekend indulgence with cucumber water and spa music. It is mandatory maintenance, like brushing your teeth, or lying about how many figs you ate. Everyone bathes. daily. If you skip a day, people notice. And by notice, we mean they wrinkle their noses at you and start spreading rumors that you've become barbaric. Even the lower classes make an effort. Sure, some might not afford the grand therme, but smaller, cheaper bathhouses exist. Places where you can scrape off the day's grime without being judged by a senator mid-massage. Places with fewer poets. Slightly fewer rats. Maybe. And because bathing is social, missing a day also means missing everything. The gossip, the overheard political drama, the moment where some half-dressed architect loudly claims his aqueduct would have never collapsed, unlike that other guy's shoddy design. If you're not there, you're not in the loop. And in Rome, being out of the loop is worse than being out of clean underwear. So tomorrow, you'll wake up sore, sweaty, and vaguely cursed. Again, you'll wrap yourself in something loosely resembling a clean tunic, navigate the crowded streets, and arrive at the bathhouse with the same thought you have every day. Maybe today, I'll avoid stepping in oil. Maybe today, I'll keep my sandals. You won't. You'll go through the routine: strip, oil, scrape, soak, stew, freeze, gossip, snack, get slapped during a massage, and then nap next to someone humming what may or may not be a hymn to Jupiter. You'll exit pink, pruned, and probably emotionally drained, but you'll be clean. Ish. And through it all, you'll understand this strange Roman magic. The repetition, the routine, the comfort in knowing that no matter how chaotic, dusty, or goat-infested your life gets, there is a marble chamber filled with steam and shared trauma waiting for you. Bathing, in ancient Rome, is how you hit reset. It's where the funk gets washed off, the tension gets scraped away, and your existential dread gets drowned in lukewarm water and passive-aggressive hygiene rituals. And when the world feels too overwhelming, too itchy, too smelly, there's always tomorrow. Always another round of oil, steam, and silent judgment. And maybe, just maybe, you'll figure out who keeps stealing your sandals. Until then, embrace the funk, the routine, the oiled absurdity of it all, because you are Roman. You are constantly on the brink of dehydration, and you are absolutely, undeniably due for another bath. So tonight, as you lie in your warm, quiet bed with your clean sheets, personal bathroom, and absolutely zero shared sponges, take a moment to reflect on just how far we've come. Because the Roman baths were many things: majestic, steamy, and weirdly intimate. They were a marvel of engineering and a masterclass in communal awkwardness. A place where philosophers, fishmongers, and future emperors all stood around naked, debating politics, while trying not to slip on the tiles. You, dear listener, have survived it all. The oil, the scraping, the screaming children, and the aggressively warm marble seats. You endured cold plunges, massage beatings, and the existential horror of the sponge on a stick. You watched a man eat olives in a sauna, and you didn't judge him because in Rome, judgment is reserved for people who wear shoes in the caldarium. And the people who really lived this? They did it every day. Rain or shine, young or old, rich or poor. Roman citizens marched into those humid halls, sweaty and sore, hoping to come out a little cleaner and a lot more socialized. Their lives weren't easy. Hygiene wasn't guaranteed. But still they bathed. They believed in the ritual, in the routine, in the power of a little steam and a lot of communal gossip. So maybe whisper a quiet thanks to your ancient ancestors tonight for their resilience, for their plumbing, and for surviving centuries of mildew, athlete's foot, and political intrigue, all while mostly naked. History is messy. It's uncomfortable. And sometimes, it's slippery. But it's also proof that we've always tried. Tried to be clean. Tried to belong. Tried to pretend we're not staring at that one guy who brought wine into the sauna again. Now close your eyes. Let the steam fade. Let the tile cool. And drift off knowing that however weird today felt, at least you didn't have to spend it greased, scraped, and debating military reform in a marble echo chamber. Sleep well, and may your dreams be sponge-free.